This is Let's Talk Teens, a parenting podcast sharing tips on raising amazing teenagers. We are both certified life coaches that have worked with teenagers as coaches, mentors, and teachers. We are sharing what we have found to work best when dealing with teens and tough issues. This is Abbi and Cheree, Let's Talk Teens, episode 33, helping your teen make changes.
Oh my goodness. Don't we want our teens to change? But I think one of the things we have to think about when we think about helping them make changes is this my idea or is this their idea? As a parent, I think it's normal to want our kids to change their behaviors, especially if they are harmful to them. But I think we need to remember, just starting off with this, is remember that if it's our idea, it probably won't catch hold as much as if it's their idea. And so as we help our teens make changes, let's just think about this through this podcast is this their idea or is this my idea? And if I want it more than they want it, it might not happen like I want it to. It's hard as a parent, right? To stand by and watch your children do things when they don't want to change. They're very comfortable in their behaviors and we see the need for it.
I personally think the hardest part of parenting is when you're watching your child make a choice that you wouldn't make. It's not necessarily, does it have to be a bad choice or a wrong choice? But it's really hard when you're watching them do something that you're like, ooh, I wouldn't do that, right? And it comes from a place of years and years and years of experience. It comes from a place of maybe you've done that, right? But it is so hard when your child doesn't want to make the same choices that you want to make. And it's really hard when you see areas, as you do as a parent, right? Where you're like, ooh, they could use some rounding out here, or it would really help them out if they got up earlier or if they took this class instead, right? Like you can kind of see a path for them. And it really, really sucks when they don't want to take that path, Cheree.
It really does. I have this client I worked with for a while and I adore her. And for a while, I mean, she was in a very unhealthy relationship. And her mom and dad, of course, could see it. And they wanted her to change her behaviors of how she responded to this young man and how, what she did. And she was very blinded and she didn't want to change it. And it created a lot of conflict between, her and her parents, of course. And I remember a conversation with the mom calling me like why doesn't she just see this? And I just wanted her to change. And we just talked about how it's important for her to help her see why it needs to change because as long as mom and dad wanted to change and she doesn't want to change, nothing will change. So I
Mhm.
think that's just like going into my next point is helping them see where the change needs to happen. And I think we can do that by even having a good conversation with them of, okay, how is this relationship helping you? Like, what is the good that comes from it? And really, really asking the teen the question, okay, how is this relationship helping you? What are the benefits? What do you love about it? And then asking them the opposite, like, how is this relationship hurting you? What are some things that you don't like about it? Or do you have any concerns? And really opening the door and not saying, okay, do you see this concern? But just, which we want to do, we want to jump into that, but really helping them see, like, because then it's like they're gonna kind of think about it. I promise, mom and dad, they're gonna think about it as you're just, okay, what's good about this relationship and what do you like? And what are some things that you're concerned about or you don't like or that are hurting you that maybe you haven't been aware? And they might not voice it all to you, but just asking those questions gets that kind of those thoughts of like,
Lansing.
maybe I'm not liking this. And I noticed this with another client who had started vaping. And of course, his mom wanted him to stop and his dad. And he wasn't quite sure that he wanted to make that change. But helping him, like as we talked through it, like, how is vaping helping you? And how is it hurting you? And how will it continue to hurt you down the road? And just helping, like, I didn't answer those for him. I didn't tell him what to think, but
Mhm.
just having him think about it was really helpful. Have you experienced that with any of your clients, Abby?
Yes. And I was just thinking that one of the most powerful tools as a parent is the power of story. Sharing stories with your youth about either yourself, I think those are the most powerful, but other people too, right? Because our teen has every defense up of, I know you hate my boyfriend, so I'm literally going to tune you out when you start to
Mm.
tell me about how awful he is because I already know all my reasons for why I don't believe you, right? And why I love him. And I think he's the best thing ever. But when we tell a story, I feel like those defenses are a little bit down and they're able to kind of like think and marinate on that. So you better believe I'm going to share with my kids my stories about how I just was head over heels for this guy and he would, ghost me for weeks or he wouldn't respond to my text or he would go hang out with other girls, and those kind of stories help our youth go, oh my gosh, maybe mom really does know what it's like to date somebody, right? Because your teen is literally going, mom doesn't know what it's like to really be in love or to really know, they don't really know vaping's bad for you, right? Our teen has such strong ideology because as human beings, we can't be in conflict about like our personal beliefs, or if we are, it's really like not good for us, right? We can't even stand it. So we come up with every justification for the behaviors we do. When it comes to those, I think, hey, is there a story you can share? And it's got to be real. It's got to be true of, maybe your uncle or their uncle wanted to join the Air Force, but he tested positive for drugs, right? And he couldn't, right? Or, some kind of story that you're like, I'm not just telling this to you to be mean. Let me tell you this real life story about how I did this as a teen, or about how I wish I'd broken up with this guy years ago, And I feel like that's a good way to kind of get around the defenses of your teen.
I love that. And it goes right into this next point I wanted to make, which is helping them see their choices that they're making. Is it giving them less freedom or more freedom? Because for us to change, we have to see why we want to change. And I love that instead of saying, oh, you're making a wrong choice or you need to change this behavior because it's wrong and this is right. It doesn't work really well to do that right or wrong as much as okay, does this give you more freedom or does this give you less freedom? So,
Mhm.
working with that client again that was vaping, we would talk about that all the time. Like when you hide the vape from your parents and then they find out, does that give you less freedom or more freedom? Or, just go through that. What this choice you're making or this behavior, is it giving you more freedom or is it giving you less freedom? And to look at that really helps them see, okay, wait, this is actually not giving me the freedom I want. I think I want freedom. And I think that, doing drugs or sneaking out with my boyfriend or not studying for a test and procrastinating it is me having my own agency and choosing. But when they look at it as like, I'm making this choice and this behavior, and it actually is giving me less freedom down the road, especially, maybe I don't like this behavior and I want to make a change. And I think that's really helpful just to help them see that. Every choice we make, every behavior we have either gives us more freedom or less freedom. But with that being said, we also need to help them when they're ready, when it's their idea, right, Abby? We need to make sure and help them create replacement behaviors or allow them that space to do that and talk about it because it's really easy to be like, oh, I'm just going to stop vaping or I'm going to just stop procrastinating or, something that is, or I'm just going to stop waking up in the middle of the night and going and raiding the pantry. If we want them to change their behavior, it's really important for them to have something to replace it with. What do I want to replace this with? What can I do instead when that urge comes? Because that urge is going to come because I have this pathway in my brain, this neural pathway where I've done this behavior, I've done this thing over and over and over again. And so for me to change, I've got to find something I can replace it with when that behavior happens.
And that urge is so strong. Like we
For
feel if
sure.
you want to experience this, tell yourself you're not going to look at social media today, right? And then you feel that urge of when you want to do it, and then you say no, and then it gets like 10 times worse, right? Like it is so real. And so I love that because I was working with some clients and we were trying to lessen their amount of time on their phone, right? That's what mom and dad were really upset about. They knew it was a problem, right? But I remember my client saying, oh, my parents, they want me off of my phone, but then when I'm just chilling in my room, right? Because they can't be on their phone, they're like, they're mad at me. They want me to go like do something. And then my dad told me to mow the lawn. And I thought, you know what? As parents, if we've said, hey, I want you off of your phone, or you're not hanging out with these people, and our teen has really made that change, we need to give space for what satisfying that urge now looks like. And for a lot of my teens that I've worked with, they're like, I literally just want to lay on my bed, right? And as a mom or dad, we're like, what's wrong with what? Are you okay? Oh, okay, you're just being lazy, right? And we need to go, oh, actually, this is them not on their phone. And you know what? If they're gonna just like lay in their bed, right, to give that mental break that a phone does give us, okay, they're gonna do it by laying in on their bed. I need to give them time and space then to lay on their bed, right? If that's the behavior that I'm like, okay, yeah, that one's better, let them have space to do that urge. Um, I'm trying to think of like in your example of your client, with the bad relationship, that one is so hard because not only is there that urge of this is my person I talk to, this is the person I like, but now there's going to be a really big time void that
Yeah.
you also have to allow your teen to fill. And maybe as a mom or dad, you're going to have to jump in there and help them fill that.
And I helped her with that. We came up with a list of all the things she could do with her time when she was ready to make that change and that relationship. And it was a really good listen. She wrote it down so that her brain could go to, okay, I'm feeling really lonely. I don't have anyone to do anything with. It's Friday night. And I just want to go right back to him because he's begging me to come back to him. What can I do instead? And she could go to her list and she could have some different things to do. And by the way, I'm just going to tell you, she's doing amazing and is in this new relationship that is so much healthier for her. And it's been so fun to watch her make those changes.
That's
But
so
I had,
fun.
but it had to be her idea. Kate, with that, mom and dad, as you see your kids making those hard changes, I want you to do your best at complimenting them first about their courage. I mean, it takes a lot of courage to change. You and I know that, Abby. Mom and dads that are listening to you, you know that. Like, I bet you have a lot of things that you would like to change. Change is hard. So compliment them for their courage, compliment them for the smallest little tiniest victories that they make, Oh my gosh, you laid on your bed instead of getting on your phone. That is amazing, right? And so we want to just really encourage that because what the brain loves that pleasure of a compliment. And, like the phone or the relationship or the vape or whatever this behavior is, that gives our brain dopamine and it gives that brain that pleasure hit that it's looking for. And so as parents, we can also help create a healthy pleasure hit or dopamine by celebrating their wins and by complimenting them. And even if they kind of push back and are like, yeah, you didn't like that boyfriend anyway, their brain still really likes that, like, oh, I see you in this. I see your courage and I see how hard this is and you're doing it and you are amazing. And I admire you for your willingness to sit in this really uncomfortable urge. Way to go. I notice you.
We should find any chance to compliment our teen because often our teens, right, their brain is wired to start pushing back on us, right? And it doesn't feel good and it feels scary. And as a parent, you can just start to see all the areas you want them to change, you want them to improve. Oh, they need to be doing this. So please challenge yourself, right? Find all the ways that you can compliment them. And you'll be amazed that when you compliment the good in them, right, those changes, that they'll do it more and more.
Yeah, we are so good at that when our kids are little. Abby, you know this. You have little young ones. When they learn to go potty in the toilet or when
We're
they
so
walk.
happy. We're
I'm
like,
so happy we cheer for this. And we know it's part of their development. I think sometimes we forget as, our kids get older in their teens that they're learning to adult. This is not easy. They have to learn by their own experiences. They have to learn by falling down, or, like a little kid peeing in their pants. They have to learn I mean, that's such a silly analogy, but teens have to learn too. And the way they learn. And so when they make that change, we want to celebrate them just as big as we did when they were little. And I think that's important. Also, I just think it's just to end with this episode, I think it's really important to just remind all you moms and dads out there, you are not alone in this. Like sometimes for your teen to get help and make changes, it doesn't mean that you're not good enough, but sometimes they need help outside of parents. It doesn't mean that you don't have all the answers, parents, but sometimes they just aren't going to listen or learn from you. I know this from personal experience with my own kids, and I love them and adore them. And I knew that even as a life coach, I couldn't always help them make changes. I needed to help them and hire them a life coach or get them help other places besides me. And so just remember, if your teen is ready and they want to make a change and they're needing help, help is one of the best gifts you could give them. And I think you would agree with that, Abby. Like our clients that come to us and we can help them, it's life changing and it's game changing for them. And sometimes they just need a little extra help, and there's nothing wrong with that.
yeah, there's something so validating about hearing advice compliments, somebody pointing out your attributes that's outside of your home. And I know that it should work just the opposite, right? That it means even more that it came from my mom, or it means even more that my dad said this about me. But our brains really put a lot of value, a lot of emphasis on that outside perspective. And so, yes. And I think too, like, how do you know when your teen needs extra help? Thinking about my own clients, I mean, all stages of help from, oh, this is such a little thing to, wow, this is really big. Um, but I do think as a parent, if you are like, wow, the consequences of this action can be quite monumental, that is especially when you should jump in and get resources and not be afraid to make some drastic changes within your family to help your child because of the long-term consequences that it could bring.
We're here for you if you need it. And I know there's so many other great resources out there for you parents. You're not alone in this.
Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Teens with Cheree Murdock and Abbi Winslow. If you are looking for more tips to help your teenager, here's where you can find us. You can find Cheree Murdock on Instagram at Cheree Murdock Coaching or on her website, ChereeMurdock.com. You can find me, Abbi, on Instagram as Abbi Winslow or on my website, AbbiWinslow.com. Please rate and review our podcast and share with a fellow parent. Thanks for listening.